At this time, Latino Commission it really has a multicultural, if I could say that, staff. And although we have an emphasis, to the Latino community, we also understand that communities of color resonate with our model because they are indigenous people. And when we connect as indigenous people to the land, and that's where we come from, then we all have a similar way of being. And so we welcome anyone that comes through our doors, and hopefully they can find or reconnect to a different way of living. But today, I wanted to share about the history so you know that, where we come from. And also, let me just say that impetus, that beginning, that spark, that started Latino Commission was because in 1991, if you did not speak Spanish, and let's say they took you to jail for a DUI or some, a minor offense, you would have to literally stay in jail. But if you spoke English, you would come out. And so that really was the spark behind us coming together as residents here in San Mateo County. So I wanted to share that history. What I want to do now is I want to go into our core philosophy, how that foundation of which we stand on, right? And so I'm going to talk about the Maize-based foundation. And I'm going to share with you what that is. And then we're going to talk about la cultura cura, right? So one is like the foundation, and then one is the way that we deal with things, right? And we're going to talk about how it's seen throughout our model, and the way that we approach certain things. And then we're going to end. Well, let's see if we get that far, right? In today's discussion. I'm not sure if you know, but Latino Commission had a model. We still have a model, okay? And actually, I have it in a poster in my office upstairs. And the TLC model was pride and strength comes from knowing who you are. Pride and strength comes from knowing who you are. And it was a set of teachings really that we embodied through that model. And so I know a lot of times we hear about pride, and we hear about pride maybe not in such a positive light, but when we thought about pride, we were looking at when you know where you come from, right? And when we say where you come from, is like, what are the teachings of where you come from? When you know that. And then when you can understand the teachings of your family, right? And those around you, and where those come from, having that understanding then allows you to see what are the teachings that you want to bring forward with you, and what are the teachings that you want to leave behind. But when you don't know that, and you don't have that information, then it's very easy to just be like, something floating in the water, because there's no anchor, there's nothing there, to hold you a center, right? To give you a foundation, to give you a connection. And so in our model, it embodies that. Pride and strength comes from knowing who you are. Because when you know who you are, then that gives you strength. Then that will help you to have a clear identity of who it is that you are. We call those things cultural protective factors, right? Because I know who I am, I know where I come from, I understand what it is that I believe or what I want to believe. So those are our cultural factors. And what that does is that it inoculates us, right? It gives us that protection, just like a vaccine, right? Protects you from the flu or protects you from whatever, right? It helps us then to deal with life. and helps us to stay in a good way. When we don't know, then that's part of the challenge, right? Because then it's easy to drift any kind of way. I want to go to the core values of Latino Commission. And so as staff, we should know our core values. And so we have 5 core values. We have compassion. And the one thing we know, when we have compassion, then that automatically dignifies a person, right? So our second value is, we have dignity. We dignify people. We acknowledge people. People matter, and because of that, then it interconnects us. And so a word that staff really resonated with when we developed our core values was family. And really, what are we saying when we say family? It says you have a belonging. You belong somewhere. You belong to someone. And so then that creates that belonging. And when we belong with someone and we feel dignified and we can feel the compassionate because we're not perfect, then that takes us to remaining that way in a good way, which is integrity, right? Doing the right thing. And someone once said, right, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody can see you. So it's really practicing in a good way that brings honor, right, to those that you're connected to and to yourself. So integrity. And then the last thing, when all that's, flowing and interconnected in a good way, then that's our teamwork. So in Latino Commission, we really count on teamwork. We work together. And let me say, just because we have these things, it doesn't mean that we're perfect, because we make mistakes. We all have good and bad days. But it's the room to be able to do those things and yet not be rejected or thrown aside or discarded, no, but embraced in a good way so that we can continue to support each other and really work together in teamwork. I always say teamwork makes the dream work. I don't know who invented that, but I really like that that little slogan, teamwork makes the dream work, because in Latino Commission, this work is not dependent on one person. It's definitely not dependent on me, because if it was, we'd be in trouble. But it's dependent on all of us. Our interdependent relationships allows us to do the work that we do. So those are our core values. And then I'm going to go to our mission. So our mission statement is restoring all people holistically. So when we say holistically, and we're talking about restoring and helping people come and connect back to themselves, right? Holistically. That means that we're looking at all of them. So holistically, all of them. Not only your physical, an addiction part, but your mental part, your emotional part, your spiritual part. So holistically. So restoring all people holistically in an environment of love and understanding. Okay, so, we have a safe place. So as people come in, that environment needs to feel safe, needs to feel love. People need to feel understood, right? So in an environment of love and understanding that represents our culture, which will improve the quality of life, right? Improving the quality of life. So that is our mission, to restore all people holistically in an environment of love and understanding that represents our culture, improving quality of life. And let me just say, when I'm saying culture, I think the beautiful thing about Latino Commission, it allows room that wherever you come from, whatever culture you represent, you're a human being, and that is the value that you carry. So it's not one culture over another, no. And there's not one better or less than the other, no. It's the culture that you represent, the people that you represent, the family that you represent, the community that you represent, right? And that doesn't take away from, our targeted, let's see if I could use it that way, or emphasis within the Latino community. Okay? So, in our live thing, I wish I could say any questions. So let's start off. So I want to go to, I want to start with the base philosophy. And so this is actually, let me just write it, it's called Maize, B-A-S, base philosophy. Maize-based philosophy. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about maize. And I did bring a picture that I think is important sometimes to see. So maize, or in English maize, right, is a concept, philosophical concept that put together several aspects of where we come from. So let me step back a little bit and explain what I'm trying to say. So it is said in our traditions, and I'm talking about, the Americans. Oh yeah, I will. I'm talking about Mexico, let's say from part of the south part of the United States, Mexico, Central America, and South America, those Americans, right? And it said that our people came, and I'm talking like thousands of years ago, right? And they developed maize, right? Now, maize is the only, how can I say, created food by people. And so if you could think about that, that's pretty amazing. That we come from a lineage that actually created food. And so they say that it was a domestication, right, of what they call, and I'm gonna show you this picture. Because the corn that we eat today started more like this. You can see that, right? And so they say around 900 years ago, the early farmers in the region, and it's called the Basas River Valley, and that's the southern part of Mexico, central Mexico. Okay, that they worked on they were working with this maize because it was very difficult to eat, right? So they started to work with it, and that's what you call domesticate. And this was called teosinte. Okay, and so that's this. Let's stay up here. Yeah. Okay. So they worked with this, and it was kind of like a little grassy. It doesn't look like the corn on the cobs that we see. It had a small little cob, right, with some kernels around it, but they were too hard to eat. And so working with this, then they developed what we now look at and what we know as the corns of today. And so some of the seeds were taken to different parts of Central and South America. We know that, some of the discoveries that they have made, on different archaeological sites, they've found evidence of the maize on those areas. And they also acknowledge that while in Central and South Central Mexico, they were working with it, to make it softer and actually make it a little bigger. There was also bodies of work being done let's say in the Amazon is another way where they developed it. And then in Central America, also Guatemala and things like that. And so I think that, it's really, really cool because in that part of developing the maize, and the maize actually became their sustenance. And so you can, we can eat like maize, you can eat corn, like corn on the cob. You can also dry it and make it into powder, but every year, you got to replant it. It's not one of those plants that will just grow over and over. But in the concept, right, it carried the essence because it was life for our ancestors. When they were on their journeys, they carried this, and this is what sustained them. And so it was life for them. And in that essence, they talked about, it represented who we were and who we could become. And understanding that we are human beings, right? Connected to one another. And the maize talks about that, right? Because you have the rows, right? And they're all connected, but they're centered on a cob, right? That come out, of when you peel off the husk. So today when we have some of our traditional ceremonies for young girls, right? And they do they have their ceremony. It's symbolized by the corn. And it's very interesting. I was talking to one of our elders, and even they explain it that when the young girl is coming, right? So starting to develop it, you can't see that. But the way that that corn is starting to ripen, right, is because of the husk, right? All of a sudden you start to see all of those hairs. And so she was just sharing, that's how we know that our youth start to develop, right? Because it's the hair starts to grow on the body. And so we know that there's a transition actually happening, right? And so anyways, and so, so in the teaching of the Maize, it speaks about who it is that we are, who it is that we want to be, that we're interconnected. And this is what we call being human. But not only that, because it's all together, it's actually the representation that everything is related. So we are not, separate from creation. We are part of creation and interrelated to creation. And it's amazing though, this information has tried to be, destroyed, because we know, when the Spaniards came, and especially into Mexico and Central and South America, right? They came in the Caribbean, what they did, the first things they did was try to destroy all their knowledge. And so all the books, the burnings of the books and any of that, of those symbols that would keep that information, they try to destroy. But even in that effort to destroy everything, and though we are not planters and have milpas, and milpas is like your crop of corn, right? We don't have the milpas, and we're not familiar of really how to grow it and how to take care of it. That knowledge, even though we had those people that tried to destroy it, it's been great that within our community, our elders kept the knowledge and actually have been practicing certain things from those times. And so the goal of destroying all that we knew was not accomplished. And to this day, we talk about language is still there. People speak many dialects. People speak Nahuatl. Our foods are still there. We still, acknowledge that. And our rituals, we have their ceremonias. There's markers of different celebrations, coming of age celebrations, elder celebrations. We honor, birth and death, and the different events in between. And so, so that's good for us to know that our history is still alive and it's rich and it's tangible. And I say tangible because we can get the information, and we're continuing to get more and more information of who we are as a people, right? And so I would encourage those, because I'm sharing with you, a perspective that is a Latinx perspective. But I would encourage you that if you have a different culture, then it's important for you to know what that is. Like for myself, my mother's Puerto Rican, my father's Mexican and Comanche. And so different parts of my life, I resonated with different parts more, and I learned more, but when I was able to really embrace all three of those, wow, the sense of healing and integration that happened for me within my soul, was amazing, because then I'm able to embrace my full self. And I think that that's one of the challenges that we have when we have, we'll have someone comes into the program, and let's say they're biracial, and I see this a lot. So if I'm, white and Latino, and then I hate my Latino side and I love my white side, or vice versa, or if I'm black and I'm white, and I hate my black side and I want my white, or I love my white, I hate my white and I want to be black. So I over-identify with one or the other. Well, the reality is that we need to come and embrace our full self, whatever that is. So going back to that, so the Maize-based concept comes with those three components, right? That makes us who makes us human. And so looking at that, or who we are, where we want to be, and becoming a human being, we look at the three concepts. So the first concept under that is el etch. And that's something that you are, probably are familiar with. I know we talk about it a lot here in Latino Commission. But it's el etch. Tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. Si hago daño a ti, me hago daño a mí. If I harm you, I harm myself. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. Si te amo y respeto, me amo y respeto a mí. Right? And so, it's very interesting because, I've heard a lot of people go, it's like the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would want them to do it to you. And we have this teaching worldwide. The Buddhists have it, Islam has it, Muslims have it. I mean, it's a worldwide indigenous thing. It encompasses the whole world, understanding that concept. And so we call it el etch, right? Because you really are an extension of myself. And if I understand that, then the way that I might act would be very different, right? So how do I treat someone else, right? It becomes a prescription of how to interact with human beings. And so if I want to be treated basically in a good way, then I want to treat in a good way. Because the other half of that is that if I don't treat people well, then people are not going to treat me well. And that's just, what they say, it's a no-brainer. Now, I think it's there's one more part about it that it kind of goes a little bit beyond the universal golden rule in this way, because it's not only a relationship between human beings, but it's a relationship between everything within this universe and in our dimension. And so I think that that's really important for us to understand. that in la etch is not only about treating ourself, our whatever reflections around us, but it's actually treating every living thing in this dimension as I want to be treated. Now, when we throw in that perspective, then it looks a little different, right? Because now we're talking about how do we treat Mother Earth? You know, are we being conscious of the way that we live in that aspect? So are we, treating the water right? Are we treating the forests right? Our oceans. And so it's really talking about we are truly a reflection of our environment. And if we treat our environment well, our environment will treat us well. So, tú eres mi otro yo, you are my other me, is in la etch. So that's one of the bases, the concepts under Maize-based philosophy. And I just want to give credit where credit's due. This putting together of the philosophy, and I'm so grateful. He's a personal friend of mine, Roberto Rodriguez, Sintley is his now name. He was, he has a PhD. He works out at University of Arizona, and they did the kind of indigenous school there in Arizona, which the government really did not want them to have, but they're empowering youth within the community. He was able to bring those together, because I think a lot of times, we practice in our silos, and sometimes we're doing things but we don't have names. And so we have these great, scholars that help us to name things so that we can see things more clearly. So Roberto is one of those guys. And so he was able to organize this under what we call Maize-based philosophy. So that's in la etch. All right. From in la etch, I want to introduce you to another concept. And these all go together, which is panche. Panche. And these are all not what words, right? And so basically what panche is to find truth in the roots of life. To find that truth. And then never be satisfied, with official truths. And so just because someone says something doesn't make it true. Right? And so our duty to never be complacent and to be relentless in pursuing that truth is what panche is about. Right? So to seek that truth. Don't just take it, because, my friend said it, and you don't even know if your friend even knows, right? But to really know for yourself. If you believe something, know why you believe it. Right? You're going to do something, know why you're going to do it. So that is a panche. So, and the other part about it is that it helps us develop our critical thinking skills, right? So that we're not complacent, with our knowledge, but that we really develop this component of thinking things out, right? Critically looking at something. How can we look at whatever's there in all the fullness of it, in all the dimensions of it? That is panche. Seeking the truth within the roots. And the last part of that is hunab. I'm gonna grab another. Hunab, did I spell that right? Hunab, yeah, hey. You know how I am with my spelling. Hey. Let me make that right so you can see it. Hunab. Okay, hunab. And what hunab is It was the Maya way to look at what we would say in our time, maybe creator or God. They looked at it more from an aspect of giver of life, or the great architect, sorry, right? That greatness, that supremeness, that all-encompassing energy was hunab. And why this is important for us is that our people, and indigenous people, and when I say indigenous people, I'm saying communities that were connected to the earth. And that's all across the world. So our African brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, you know, our native from Northern America and ourselves, right? Connected to the world. They understood Anabku. They understood that there was a great architect out there that designed and helped bring life. So they call it giver of life, that which gives you life. That energy, that we do not understand, that all-encompassing light was there. And the importance of acknowledging that in our daily lives, right? And so we would say a spiritual connection. So that part there, that essence that's greater than ourselves. Out, Maize-based philosophy, el etch, panche, hunab. You're my other me. Panche, you want to seek and not let anything get in the way for you to seek the truth that you're looking for, and that there's something greater than ourselves, that giver of life. Hunab. And so maybe when we reconvene, then I'll share with you how we implement these three concepts within the work that we do at the Latino Commission. Thank you.